Welcome to the Love That For You podcast, where every week you're invited to dream big, laugh often, and celebrate the extraordinary stories of those who inspire. Your story matters, and I love that for you. This podcast episode is sponsored by Turnkey Solutions Network. They are a family-owned and operated residential remodeling company serving the Charlotte and surrounding areas. This husband and wife team has years of experience and strive to ensure quality workmanship and customer satisfaction. I personally can attest to this because Daniel and Taylor came into my studio and helped me completely demolish a wall that stood in between two bedrooms and made it one large studio space. They did all of this work in 1 week. If you've seen my studio, it is insane. Taylor is ready to walk you through your project design step by step. From material and paint color selection to tile and cabinetry layout, you are never alone throughout this process. Taylor works closely with the installation crews to make sure your vision comes completely to life. Daniel, her husband, will manage your entire project from beginning to end. From getting materials on site and prepping before demo to installing the last mirror or shelf, you will have a member of their team checking in every step of the way. Turnkey Solutions Network also works with DIYers and other contractors through their retail store where you can source your materials at a competitive price. They carry an exclusive selection of tile and have an expansive collection of flooring and cabinetry options. Turnkey Solutions Network offers free estimates and can turn your dream into reality. Again, I've seen it happen in my own life. They can do it for you too. Give them a call at 704-441-7850 or find them on Facebook at Turnkey Solutions Network. Today on Love That For You, we get to chat with my friend and personal mentor, Melissa Kruger. She has actually been on the podcast before, and we talked all about relationships and mentoring and if we need it and why we need it. And it's such a good episode, so go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet. And then in today's conversation, we're talking all about her brand new book, Parenting with Hope. You do not want to miss this one, whether you have little kids at home, you have teenagers at home, you're a parent with grown adult children, or you're like me and you're single and not married yet and no kids are in your home. This book is for you. It is such a great message that Melissa shares in this book, and I cannot wait for you to listen to our conversation. So here's my friend Melissa. I feel like you were just here.
I know.
Doesn't it feel like you're just here?
I was.
Talking about your life and all your books, and
yes.
Now I got a new book.
How long ago was it?
I don't even know. I should have looked it up before I just said that comment.
Okay.
Melissa Kruger, welcome back to the Love That For You podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're in my studio.
It's so fun.
I love hanging out with you.
I know.
And
we should do one from the back porch.
Oh my goodness.
We're live from the back porch sometime.
Yes. Also, I have not told you this, so everyone listening, we went walking the other day. Okay, I've been working out. I'd like to think of myself as like getting my way to be a fit person. I don't know if it was the hills or the speed, but something like right behind my right. No, it's fine. I just was like, what is that? Ow, wait, ow. Like 3 days later, I was like, oh my goodness, like the biggest knot behind my leg. So I don't know what muscle that was, but
there are some hills in my neighborhood.
I think it was the hills because
that one, there's some hills.
Yes, because I went running with a friend, but it was like all very flat. And then with you, I think, and we also just got like so deep in the conversation, I wasn't even thinking, and we were just like moving as fast as our mind was going. Anyway, if I say no to walking with you next time, you know why.
Okay,
I'm just kidding.
You're like, she's going to make me go up those hills again.
How would you come over to my neighborhood?
I know. Is it flat around here?
Yeah, super flat. Well, if you go back into the neighborhoods back there, it gets a little hilly, but the shopping center area is pretty flat.
Okay, that's good.
Now
that we've got that worked out.
Now that we got that all figured out.
Y'all can come walk with us.
Yes. Wait, no. I'm going to be so selective of that. That is my precious time with you. Okay. I am so excited that you're here because you have a brand new book that just released called Parenting with Hope. And we're going to dive all into this book. But I told you before we pressed record that I have a bunch of questions that I want to kind of just like rapid fire at you. And I'm hoping that there's at least like 2 or 3 of them that you've not heard before.
Okay.
But now I'm going to be...
I'm now a little scared.
I'm going to feel like a poor question asker if you're like, Morgan, I've literally answered every one of these on a podcast interview.
I'm sure I haven't.
I hope not. If you want to lie and be like, that is a great question, I've never heard that before. Just kidding. Okay. Please don't lie. Okay, but before we dive into the book, how are you doing? Tell me what is happening, like what is happening in life right now?
It's crazy. We talked about this. Yeah, it's crazy. So this book came out in April. I have a devotional coming out in May, which we talked about, and a Bible study in June, and a big conference that you're coming to, TGC W24, with 10,000 of our best friends all coming together. We should give your listeners a discount code. We could probably do that.
Really?
Yeah, I bet we can totally do that.
That would be so kind of you.
I'll give them my discount code, which I know, which is... I do know it. It's Melissa25, all in caps. Okay. Melissa25, all in caps. So your audience could use it, and it gets them $25 off.
Wait, I didn't even use that.
Oh,
bummer.
Sorry.
It's fine. We'll let the listeners use it.
I
mean, I'm not going to be like, hey, Melissa, I'm going to sign up for this event. Do you happen to have a coupon code?
You should have asked for a code. Melissa25.
Okay, Melissa25. Perfect. Okay, so all the things, we got books, devotionals, that big conference. I'm very excited about that conference. I went to my first TGC conference, but I've not yet been to the all women's one. So I'm very excited.
It's fun
to be part of that.
It's really fun.
It's going to be so good. Well, okay, cool. So let's just dive into this because I want to hear your answers for some of these questions. So for the book. So the first one I have, and these are like kind of in order, I feel like. Okay. So we'll just go for it. So this book, Parenting with Hope, I've read it. It's phenomenal. I really enjoyed reading it. I actually have a couple pages tabbed that we can like go to because I want to talk about like specific quotes that you talked about too. But this is all about raising teenagers like biblically in a Christ-like way. So for believers, maybe you should be giving the bio to the book.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So I would love to know what the most difficult part of writing this book was for you, because you are a mom right now raising teenagers. So was this easy for you to write because you feel like you're in the thick of it, or was it difficult? And what was the most difficult part of it?
Yeah, it was excruciating to write. I have a 17-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 23-year-old. And so I started writing it probably when Kate was 15. So maybe 15, 18, and 21. It's the hardest book I've written. And it's not because my kids are so hard. Yeah, it's not like this, I'm telling their stories. I'm actually not telling their stories. And so I really wanted to guard their stories because I'm trying to talk about how to be the parent of a teen. But I really believe in privacy with our kids. Yeah. And so you're trying to write from a place of understanding of why it's hard without sharing the stories that they faced or the things they've gone through. Because I think that deserves to be their story. And when they want to talk about things, they can. But I'm also walking through a lot of friends who are dealing with excruciating things. Just really not easy. I mean, some friends have told me things that I'm like, I've never even heard of that. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to walk through it with you. And so when you have toddlers and you talk about like tantrums, everybody's like, yeah, we've all seen the mom at the store with the tantrum. Mm-hmm. But some of the things going on are really unshareable in like a small group. Mm-hmm. And then so you say something like, well, it's just really hard. And, people have different levels of understanding of what they think that is. They might not realize that meant you were in the ER wondering whether or not your kid needs to be put into a mental health unit this week. I'm walking with friends who are making those choices, and they're like figuring out, should they go to this but this treatment facility for drug use? Like they're dealing with really hard things, and you can't just always share that like on your Facebook feed. Right. They're not being false by what they share on their Facebook feed, but we all should know, or Instagram, it's always a limited story. Yeah. And so I think what I didn't want the words I was writing to cause anyone harm. Meaning to make any parent feel like what I did caused this. that wasn't, the goal was, how do we walk with God in this season?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was the longest answer to that.
That was
Sorry.
fantastic. Well, that leads right into my next question is, what is the best case scenario of this book? Like, what would make you the happiest? What type of outcome could there be with somebody reading this book?
I have not been asked that question. Yes. Here, I would love for the mom of a 10-year-old to read this book and to just go into the teen years, one, with a little more excitement, a little more hope, and a little more focus on herself, not her child. So it's so tempting to be like, what is this kid becoming? Who are they becoming? And I'm not saying, so focus on yourself a little more. I'm actually saying that she would be encouraged to focus on God a little more.
Right.
And not herself,
right.
Not her teen, but to really focus on God. So, it's funny. It's a book about parenting teens, but it's really a book about being a human.
Yeah.
Like it could be applied. It could be applied to work.
Yeah.
It could be applied to marriage. Like, a lot of the things I discuss in there are about how do you walk in your life as a fully present person, depending upon God, whatever you're facing.
Right. I mean, as someone who is single, not married, no kids yet, I learned so much from this book, And okay, so this is one thing that I actually had marked on page 166. It says, when our kids fail, it's not just a situation to deal with or a problem to solve. It's an opportunity to teach our children about God's grace in a powerful way. And I read that and I'm thinking, I need this. Like, what a beautiful example for me that when I mess up or when I don't know what to do, I can look to God and see the grace that He has given me.
Absolutely.
Like we all need that so much.
Absolutely. And so it's things like that you realize, and as a parent, you're messing up constantly. Yeah. And so how am I a person who's walking with the Lord? I think the difference when you get to parenting, and this is all of our mistake, is we all of a sudden think we're supposed to know what we're doing.
Right.
And we don't.
Yeah.
Meaning, you think, oh, I'm the adult in the room. I remember feeling that way sometimes. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And so the reality is we're all children who need our Heavenly Father.
Right.
And we need Him. We need His mercy and His grace.
Right. I was recently listening to a podcast where a couple was talking about how they met and their wedding, and now they're like a few years into marriage. And they were like, when we got married, like when we were standing at the altar and we said, I do, and we kissed each other and we walked down the aisle, like nothing changed. Like we were legally married, but we don't just know how to be married. Like we are still now figuring out how to be husband and wife.
Yes.
It's like, I knew that, but also that's such a good point.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with like parenting or any stage of life.
That's right. Like now I'm learning how to be the parent of a 23-year-old.
Yeah. Right. Because you've never done that before.
Never done that before. So this life thing is hard, right?
Yeah.
Like no matter what season you're in,
right.
It's like, oh, I'm learning to be a 30-year-old, or I'm learning to be a 40-year-old. I'm learning to be I think I thought at every season I'd look ahead and I would know what I was doing then.
Yeah. Right.
I'm pretty convinced now I'm going to be an 80-year-old and I'm going to be like, first time I've ever been an 80-year-old. Here I am.
But you just look back and you're like, you know what? I believe I did the best that I could with the tools and the knowledge and the resources I had.
That's right.
And
clinging to grace.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. The next part is kind of a two-part question talking about distractions. So what do you think is the biggest distraction from parents raising teens today? And then we're going to flip it. And I'd love to know your opinion on what is the biggest distraction facing teenagers today. So parents parenting teens and then facing teens.
I think almost one of the biggest distractions is the amount of information we have. And so when I look at my little phone and I look at Instagram and I see what you're doing or what someone else is doing, I can immediately be scrolling and I'm feeling failure all day long, whatever it might be. So it could be, it could be a simple thing. Like I remember one fall, everyone is going apple picking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not get the memo. We have not been apple picking. I am failing as a human, whatever. Because it looks like everyone out there. And then just the other day, a friend was like, we're going strawberry picking. And I'm like, people do that? I didn't know.
If you told me, if you asked me what time of year do you go strawberry picking, I would not tell you.
Yeah, I know.
I would not know.
These are things, right? So, and then all of a sudden though, now you're looking at your life and you're like, so we have this information overload coming at us of opportunity.
Right.
So there are so many opportunities that I think it can distract parents of teenagers from the simplicity of what is needed.
Yeah.
And here's what I would say is needed. Yeah, I'd call it the basics in the book. You need to be in the Word, you need to be in prayer, and you need to be in church. Okay. Thank you for giving me a 3-point, like simple, base my life, build my foundation on those.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so many good things we could do.
Yes.
That it can get swallowed up in the best things we need to do.
Right.
So there's so much out there. And it's like, how do I get through all the opportunity that's calling? It's like going to, eat yogurt now. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like a panic attack ready to happen because there are 25,000 yogurts to choose from.
Right.
And that's kind of how life feels. Whereas when you hear, okay, the important chunks of your life, you need to be in God's Word, you need to be a prayerful parent, and you need to go to church. That's going to change your parenting.
Yeah.
And you're probably already doing it.
Right.
And I can say with full confidence, do those things. Mm-hmm. And everything else will fall into place. It's okay if you never go apple picking. I have gone apple picking with my kids, but it is okay if you don't.
That's really good. And I think the point of just about there being too much information, leads to another thing that you said that I think can play really well into this. On page 69, it says, understanding our teens' perspective is a vital part of creating a warm environment where faith and questions about faith can flourish. So it's like understanding that you and me being on our phones, having all this information thrown at us, and we're full-grown adults. We're not teenagers with all this information. So now we have to figure out how to parent, how to mentor, how to guide and lead these children and teenagers when we did not have the information that they have. So in a way, like parenting today is different than it was 20 years ago because life is so different.
Yep. I would actually, rarely say, oh, we're in a historic moment. Yeah, because I feel like it's so dramatic, right? Like we always are like, well, I mean, World War II seemed pretty rough. Like when people act like the sky is falling, I'm like, the sky literally was falling, and like they were bombing people regularly or whatever. However, we never had access to this much information. Like that is truly unique at any historical moment. Yeah. What you have on your phone, I mean, you can find out more data. You can find out, what's happening around the world. Like when my son was in Malaysia this summer, I could GPS locate his phone, and see where he was. Like that's crazy that I could have that kind of access. And, like I was looking at all my kids where they were all around the world, and I could find them. I mean, that's unprecedented. Right. And it really is a little bit overwhelming that we can know about the earthquake that hit here. We can know about the war that's breaking out there. We can know about the famine that's happening. I mean, that's overwhelming. And our kids are having to process that. So I do think that is contributing to the rise in anxiety that we see, the spikes in this feeling of not being in control of their environment. And I think the second thing that hits that is it's a more secular age than ever. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a culture that is saying, hey, God is in control of the world. We can trust him. We should pray to him. We have a culture that's kind of saying, hey, we have to change this. Right. It's up to you. It's up to you.
It's up to you. You do you. You own your own truth. You are your own superhero. And
that's terrifying.
A lie.
Yeah.
But they're painting it like this is the most strength-filled individualistic thing, and it's like actually if we all are our own heroes, then there's no camaraderie in that, there's no community in that, there's no growth in that.
Rather than hearing you're made in the image of a loving God who at every moment of your life, even when hard things are happening, is somehow working all things for good. Wow, that's a hopeful message. Like we have that to give our kids. The world is giving them terribly bad advice that is leading them down all sorts of bad paths. And, it's not helping them.
Right. Next question. What is one thing that you'd want your teen to say about you and the way that you've parented?
oh, I'm going to cry. You're going to make me cry. Immediately I'm like, oh, I'm going to cry. I just wanted them to want to come home. Oh, here we go.
We have tissues. It's okay.
I know.
All feelings are acceptable here.
You want to have created such a loving place. That home is always good.
Yeah.
And I see that, and that they love to be around each other. I mean, it's just the happiest thing. And, so I just would want them to say, I want to come home. And this is where I feel the most freed up to be me. I think sometimes like we go back to our homes of origin and we're like, this is where my worst self shows up. Yeah. I mean, I retreat to teenage Melissa sometimes in my interactions. And I want them to just be able to come home and feel at ease with who they are and know that they're loved.
That's really beautiful.
Stop crying. I haven't cried on any podcast about parenting.
Yes.
So you've done it.
Okay. Another slightly turning it question. Thinking through, and this has a lot to do with at church, we've been going through the Beatitudes. And so it's just been something that's on my mind a lot because additionally with church and my community group, we're talking about it. So I just feel like all throughout the week, I'm thinking through these Beatitudes and words like hope and grace and mercy and compassion and love. I'm thinking through these words and they are such grace-filled words given from God from a well that never runs dry. But at the same time, they are words that our world also uses. Our world says to extend mercy and to give grace to people and to love people and show compassion. So my question is, what is the difference between Christian parenting as a Christian showing mercy and grace and compassion to your child versus non-Christians still claiming that they're showing love, grace, and mercy and compassion to their children? Like, what is that difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And I might even couch it a little bit of what's the difference maybe between permissive, like just being a permissive home and a grace-filled home. Because I think sometimes in the world, mercy and grace is the equivalent of you do you.
Yeah.
Permissive, whatever is good, you do you.
So it's like almost like they're not giving it the actual right definition to what it truly is.
That's exactly right. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, our home's incredibly gracious. We let our kids do whatever they want. That's actually not a gracious home, because to be gracious, you have to have a standard.
That's good.
There has to be a standard that someone didn't live up to.
Right.
For you to extend grace and mercy. It's not like, there has to have been a wrong done, and we're so uncomfortable with saying there was something wrong done.
Yeah.
So you're just saying it's okay, whatever you do, I'll love you. Well, we can say that, but that's actually just being permissive. Like whatever you want in life, I'm going to be here for you.
Right.
That's permissive versus saying, hey, there is a standard, but you know what? I don't live up to it either. And we're going to have to be partners in grace. You're going to need to give me grace. I'm going to have to give you grace.
Right.
And I think that's way more hopeful.
Right. It is way more hopeful. And it's ultimately not coming from yourself, because me just extending something from me, like it's not going to go super far because I can only do so much.
That's right.
But yeah.
We're teaching them how God will receive them.
Right.
And we're teaching them why Christ is needed.
Yeah.
How can kids accept the gospel if they always think, I never do anything wrong?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I think in our inner being, we all know something's not right with the world.
Right.
Yeah, we all know, and we all know something's not right with the world, and we all know something's not right with us.
Right.
And so the Christian message is inherently hopeful,
right?
Because it explains that.
Yeah.
It explains why it happened, and it explains what do we do from there.
Yes.
I mean, no other religion offers that kind of hope.
Right. The fact that we're told that those who we give mercy because we have received that mercy. And it's like our eyes have been open to the fact that we need mercy. So then when our eyes are open to that, we can receive that. But then after we have received it, it's like, okay, well, now you go out and you give that same mercy to others.
That's right. That's right.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's an extension.
I had that written down just as a statement. I said, just through my thoughts, I was thinking through these questions after reading. I just said, it seems as though that the healthiest Christian parents are those whose individual walks with Christ is a priority to them. And it's those people who have realized what they have received is then going to affect how they parent.
That's
because
right.
it's going to come from a place of, well, I've been given so much, so I need to extend that to my children.
That's right. Whereas the most unhealthy parenting situations is a parent who is so empty that they're trying to fill themselves from their child. So whether it's they need their child's love, their child's approval, their child to be successful, their child to, represent them well, that's actually from a place of emptiness. So if I'm being filled up with Christ's love for me, now I'm going to be emotionally stable. Right. So that I'm not placing my worth in my teen. It's one of the hardest burdens we can put on our teen. Yeah. If how you're doing is representative of me, that's just an amazing burden to put on any other human.
Right.
Right? Like,
or even their performance being like dependent on your love. Like that's terrible.
Yes.
To have to perform from that place of, well, I have to do this so that they love me or accept me.
That's right. That's right.
I have a few situational questions because I would imagine there's a lot of different types of people listening to this podcast and a lot of different types of people reading the book. So my first one is a first-time mom is listening to this podcast. And while this resource is a huge encouragement to her, it also feels extremely overwhelming that she now has to do all of these things in this way. How does she view this as a gift from God to parent her child and not a checklist?
That's great. I think there are probably a lot of people out there who are going to give you, do this, do this, do this. And again, this is where I hope it's simpler. Mm-hmm. Like my real hope for them is be a Christian. Yeah. Like just live what you believe. Now, don't add anything, because if you are first taking in God's word, now you're receiving divine wisdom. Anything I'm telling you, I'm finite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're finite. Don't listen to me.
Right.
Like, go read the Bible.
Right.
Is what I want to say.
Turn off the podcast. Stop listening to us. Just open your Bible.
Read the Bible. Because that's, I don't know how it does what it does, but I know it's living and active. Mm. And I know its words are doing things that my words can't do.
That's right.
And then we have the opportunity to pray. So here's the thing. I mean, I was the worst at this as a mom. I would read the blogs. I would go and figure out all the things. What's wrong with my kid? X, and you try to figure it all out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I haven't even prayed about this. And, I had one friend who was going through, there was this very odd disease her child basically had and had contracted and all of this. And we prayed for her. Like, finally, we all prayed for her. All these things were going on. That next week, she sat next to someone at a random event whose child was going through the exact really rare thing. And that conversation led to her child getting the help her child needed to get.
Oh, my.
Well, surely God ordained
100%.
even who she's going to be sitting beside at this. The event was not about children. It was not about parenting. It just so happened. So when we ask the Lord to help, the advice may come from some random place we weren't going for that purpose.
Right.
The Lord can ordain that when we cry out to him.
Yeah.
So we have divine wisdom through his word. We have divine help through prayer.
Yeah.
And then we have a divine community through the church.
Yeah.
Like the Spirit is alive. So
right.
You might say something to me that totally impacts everything about my week with my kid. And you had no idea. We're just in a small group or whatever, right? You're just sharing what you're learning from God's word. And you might have no idea how the Spirit used that in my life. Those three things, it's not about adding all this to-dos, and the Lord will work through those three elements, I feel like, in our life. And I call them the foundations of just building a home.
Yeah, that's incredibly encouraging. And I'm thinking of how God is our Father and how we have an example through Jesus. Like we're told, like he was tempted as we were, like he knows what it feels like to be human. So even just having that personal relationship of, yes, you're praying to a God who can change things, but you're praying to a God who is Father. Like he really knows.
Yeah.
And that should be so comforting. That feels so comforting to know that.
That's right. And he's available.
Right.
You know, he is your phone a friend when
Yes.
you do not know what to do. And the model you set in that in life will be the best example for your kids.
Mm.
That modeling is going to speak 1,000 sermons to them.
Yeah.
You know, but here's the thing, you know, we talked about this is just how to live as a Christian. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to do a single season of singleness, well, what would I tell you? Be in the Word, be in prayer, be in church. I'd give the same advice. If you're, you know, a widow and you want to do that well, I'd say be in the Word, be in prayer, be in the church. But I mean, this is just a foundation, anything we want to do. And this is Psalm 1.
Yeah.
Blessed is the man who doesn't delight in the evil, you know, sit in the seat of mockers, all that. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on it he meditates day and night. Whatever he does prospers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a tree planted by streams of water. Whatever he does prospers. That's the wisdom for life.
Right.
This is how we flourish as people. So it's not really particular to parenting.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, with that direction in this book.
Yeah. That's so good. Okay, next one for our situational types of questions. Parents are listening whose children, or reading the book, whose children are grown adults and out of the house, and they hear podcasts like this, they read books like this, and they feel discouraged by the way that they parented. Is it too late for them to show what true biblical parenting looks like? What does reconciliation look like between adult children and their parents?
Yeah. I think all of us are going to feel that about our parenting in certain ways. And I just think we can feel free to learn how to give a good apology. And a good apology can heal a lot of things. So if you messed up in the teen years and all the things, we could have done all the things wrong. We could have been overly strict. We could have been overly permissive, whatever.
Right.
I think, wow, to go to your kid who might be 35 and say, I just want you to know I really regret, and say exactly what you regret. Like, keep it specific.
Yeah.
Give a good apology. It can be a little bit guilting. There are things you could say like, I know I wasn't a good enough parent. No, that's not an apology.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of this like emotional something. I'm sure
you're just trying to cover your bases.
I'm sure there's a counselor name for what that is, and that's not what I'm talking about. Like, hey, I wish when you were growing up, we had gone to church every week. I'm really sorry we didn't do that.
Yeah.
Just say I'm sorry. You know, and it's amazing that we have a place when we feel convicted. The Lord has told us what to do. Ask God for forgiveness. Ask our team for who might be 30 now. Just ask for forgiveness.
And I can only imagine how transformative that would be for that 30-year-old, 35-year-old to hear that.
That's right.
And then that's going to help them as they parent their children.
That's right.
Okay, so here's a little bit of flip the script for you. What if the adult child is listening to this and they're like, okay, well, I feel hurt from my parent, but I'm the one listening to this podcast.
Oh, that's good.
Like, I don't think they're ever going to come apologize to me, but I feel hurt, and now I'm raising my kids and I feel like I'm doing it in the right biblical way, but there's almost like a little feeling of that trauma there from how they were raised.
That's right. Well, one, I would say, don't have to raise your kids the same way your parents raised you. Mm-hmm. So there's hope. Just, you may be fearful of that. You may be like, oh, I came from a bad pattern situation. My parents always did X, Y, and Z. So one, I would say it's always good to work through that, and really think through it. It might be good to talk to a counselor about it, especially certain scenarios are really bad. If there was abuse or anything like that, it's good to work through because it might come out in your parenting in ways you're not even aware. But then I think it's also good to be humble and be kind to your parents and say, wow, I don't know what I'm doing most days either. And so they may not have done it right. They might not have done everything I would do, but as much as you can, to have compassion back to them. And they might never say, I'm sorry, and they might never get it, and like that's a reality. And I think we can extend graciousness and kindness even when there's not understanding.
Right.
And I think that's okay. But thankfully, we do have a perfect parent, but the only one we have is God.
Yeah.
Because even the best of parents, are making mistakes. My kids, I don't know what they'll be in counseling for, but I'm sure they will. And just to be willing to listen. I mean, as a parent, to be able to say, "Oh, yeah, we did make this mistake in our family." If I can be that way as a parent, but also to be that way as a child of a family that maybe wasn't perfect, that there are situations where parents were not being loving. I mean, again, abusive situations are just really hard. And I think that's something to work through. But I think you can still be hopeful in that you don't have to parent your kids that way. God really can break those patterns of behaviors. I saw it in a lot of ways with my own dad. I mean, he came from a hard family situation and he was the best dad. He was kind. I mean, my grandfather, I think, was just pretty tough on them. And my dad always I drove a better car than my dad. He always put us first. And so I've seen those patterns be broken, and they really can be broken.
I think showing, extending grace and what you're saying. I'm even thinking is it possible? I think it's possible. You can even get to a point while you're working through it, after you've worked through whatever you need to work through, to even get to that point to be able to forgive without them saying, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? Because I've been in a scenario where it hasn't been with a parent, but it's been with somebody else, and I was hurt, and that apology did not come. But then I was able to, because of the Lord's grace, 100%, only that, I was able to get to a point where I was like, you know what, I want to forgive them. And then months later, they said, hey, what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry, would you forgive me? And I'm just like, yes, and not only will I forgive you, but I've already forgiven you. Because had I not come to a point of that forgiveness, I would have lived that number of months, still just kind of holding on to that. And so I think that could be encouraging for someone too, is or for someone who's maybe their parents have passed away. And so that apology is never going to come. Yeah. But it is still something that you can work through, and you can still get to a point where the Lord can allow you to extend that grace and forgiveness.
That's right. That's right. And walk in freedom. I mean, I think that's because in some ways your heart was already prepared when that person came. Yeah. You were like, oh, yes, I'm already there. And I think the more we can just, again, keep in forefront our own need of grace, we're going to see our parents before us with a lot more compassion.
Yeah. My, okay, I have two more, but I feel like they kind of can all be answered in the same way. Do you have any additional advice for the single parent who's trying to raise their kids in a Christ-like way, but it just feels so overwhelming doing it alone?
Yeah. I mean, one, I really do believe surely the Lord is your help in a special way. And I hope, I would say those initial things again. I feel repetitive of the word prayer and church, but especially the church. And this is where I would say churches need to show up for single moms and single dads, because the body can be what sometimes the physical family isn't. Right. So your kids are going to still need fathers and mothers. Yeah. And hopefully that's what the church calls them. Yeah. My mother in the faith, or my father in the faith, or my sister in the faith. The church can fill some of those, not in the same way. It's always going to be hard and broken. And there are a lot of different reasons. It's can be hard in its own way if it's divorce. It can be hard in its own way if it was death. But it always means loss. Right. It means loss for the kids. It means loss for you to do it alone. And you probably feel alone. But I think the beauty of, in this world, I have to face every day the reality that my existence could change tomorrow. I could be a single parent tomorrow. We are guaranteed nothing. The only thing I'm guaranteed is that the Lord has said, I will never leave or forsake you. That's my only guarantee. And so I think the reality is no one parents alone. We all have divine help. He is with us. But single parents have to know that in a different way. And I know that's got to be hard just each day to do it on your own. Not just in the hard things, but even in the good things, because you want to share the good things with someone too. You know, it's just a different way of going through it. But I do hope, and my biggest encouragement in that would be that the church steps up to love families in our midst well.
Yeah. That's a good call to the church to show up in that way. That's really beautiful. All right. I think the final question, well, one of the final questions, then we have a fun question. We'll take another hard right turn into that. As a single woman, what does it look like for someone like me to be in the lives of teenagers and while not overstepping in parenting, still offering Christ-like advice and wisdom to help them as they grow?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like you can do what parents cannot do. I actually would love anyone listening who is in that season of life. You're way cooler than I am. Yeah, I mean, you're way more interesting to a teenager. I mean, really, than their parent. You can speak truth in their life in a way that they will listen. Because I mean, it's just really, this is the beauty of the body.
Yeah.
And this is where I love how I've watched this happen. It's a blessing on every level, right? Because it makes you feel part of a family to know teenagers well. It makes the teen feel part of the church to know a single person in the church. Because again, all of y'all look really cool. Anyone with a stroller doesn't, or a minivan.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I don't want to talk to those people. They're all parents. They all quickly to a teenager become parents.
Right.
Whereas like you have access in a way and can do fun things and might actually have a fun life, like go to a concert every now and again and do interesting things that the teen looks at is like, oh yeah, you like the same musician I like. Yeah, I mean, whatever way you can connect. And just to get coffee at fun places, to go, all of those things, the teen is realizing, hey, this is someone who's walking with God and isn't my parent. And it makes a huge impression. I mean, I actually prayed that for all of my kids, for mentors to be in their lives who would just be a stage ahead or two ahead, who are just showing them, hey, I'm working a job and I'm following Jesus. And this is important in my life, so that they don't think it's just for parents.
Right.
Or whatever. So I think we need you desperately in the teen years, like single, men and women to invest in these teens.
Yeah.
If you can. And 'cause sometimes it can get rough out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And I'm even thinking too, like, I mean, I would love to be married someday, but it almost can be encouraging and good for a teenager to see me living single, contently, living life and doing all the fun things. And, like I am fine. Like I'm fine.
Yep.
I would like lots of things. We all would like lots of things. So it can also be, I have a particular niece and she used to ask me all the time, this was years ago, but every time we hung out, where's your husband? Why are you not married? You should be married. Well, mom had 3 kids by the time that she was your age. Like just all these questions. And it's like, read the room. But now it's like, oh, well, Morgan's the cool aunt. Morgan does this. Exactly. And it's like, okay, well, I don't want to go too heavy that way. Like I still would like a family, but being almost that like, hey, the end goal, while marriage is an awesome gift, I'd love to have it. Having a family is an awesome gift. I'd love to have it. The end goal is knowing Christ. The end goal is becoming more like Christ. And that's going to happen for different people in different ways. So I just want to steward where I am now well, and for teenagers to see where I am now doing a hopefully good job.
That's right. And that they need that story.
Because that might be their story.
Exactly. Because my kids only have me. So I got married at 23.
Yeah.
My husband got married at 26.
Yeah.
That's not normative anymore at all.
Right.
So if they think that's the timeline, they need to see lots of different timelines.
Yeah.
They need to know so-and-so, this was their timeline. So-and-so is this. Yeah. Like they just need to see a lot of options out there. And so again, that's where the church makes up the family of God. We need the church desperately so that they see your story doesn't have to look like your parents. It doesn't have to look like any, but to see lots of different stories being lived out. That's the beauty of the church.
Yeah. That's so good. So good. Okay. In addition to the book, you also have a study guide. Can you kind of just explain to us what is the purpose of the study guide? Who is your dream group going through? Is this like a group thing? Is this what you do with your family? How does the study guide work? What is your intention with it?
I would love to see a group of moms get together. Or actually, it's for moms and dads. So I purposefully wrote this, not Mothering with Hope, but Parenting with Hope, because I think I would love, really it's just a curriculum to go through to talk about, hey, how are we doing this? To really take what's in the chapter and actually think through it biblically. So in the study guide, you're going to look up the scriptures, you're going to write out your answers, and it's going to be in your life versus the book. I have to speak in generalities.
Sure.
So if this is going on, whereas the study guide is going to actually ask, what's your biggest concern with your teen today? How could you pray about that? What verse could you apply to that situation? It's going to actually get in the weeds. Or, hey, when you look at, your kid's activity list, when they're falling asleep at the dinner table, is there something you should cut from their activity list, or whatever? It's going to get a little more personal.
Okay. That sounds great for groups to be able to use. I actually know specifically my sister is leading a group of women, and they're all going through this right now. I don't think I had told you that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
so
fun.
We know there's at least one.
That's great.
So
That's great.
I'm sure there's so many
fun.
more. Well, this has been incredible. Is there anything else about the book that you'd like to say that we haven't said yet?
I think so.
I feel like
you
we've
had
covered
great
a lot.
questions. You did ask different questions.
Good.
That makes me so
really glad to hear. Where can people find you on socials, and where can people find the book?
Yeah, melissabkruger.com. I think it's .com. They can find me at the Gospel Coalition. I write over there a bunch. And if they want to come in person, they can come to Indy with us and find us at TGC W24.
It'd be so fun.
10,000 other people.
Yeah, just a few other thousands of people.
Best bookstore you'll ever find.
And an Olympic swim team.
Oh, yeah. The Olympic swim trials is happening. I'm fascinated. I'm like, are we going to be seeing people in Speedos running around? I don't know.
I just got too excited. Where is Morgan for this session? I thought she signed up for this session. Yikes.
She's watching the trials.
That's what I'm loving right now. Okay. Well, Melissa, last question I need to ask you. What are you loving right now?
I know you're going to ask me that. And I'm like, what am I loving? What am I loving? Okay, I'm going to go. I don't know if you had one of these when you came to my house. Did you have a lime Ricky when you came that day? No. Okay, it's what I made for Courtney.
Okay.
It's my favorite little drink at the end of the day these days. It's a squeeze of lime, some raspberry syrup, like the kind you get that would go in a coffee or whatever.
Sure.
Lime, raspberry syrup, and club soda. And it makes me really happy.
Just sounds refreshing.
It's really refreshing. We got them up in Maine last summer. We went to Maine for a girlfriend's 50th birthday.
Okay.
We stayed in the most lovely little coastal Maine town. And there's this, you walk to town, and they made us lime Rickies
So that's like the official name.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah. And so it's lime, this raspberry, and club soda. Okay. And it's just kind of a happy. I'm going to go home and have one.
Have you been to Sips and Dips?
No, I have not.
Okay.
But Lauren,
you need to add this to your list.
Okay.
Because it's just like a soda shop. But they have all different drinks. I mean, 100. There's so many. It's overwhelming. Or you can build your own. But they have different bases. So you could do a Coke base, you could do a Dr. Pepper base, but you could do a sparkling water base, you could do a Fresca base, you could do a still water base. So you can go as healthy or plain or as eccentric as you want.
Okay.
But so many, you could make that drink there and even add in some other syrups.
That's good.
So good. And on Thursdays, I think this is still true. You can go, if I'm wrong, oops. You can go on Thirsty Thursdays and take your Stanley or any cup that's like a Stanley size, and they'll fill it up for I think the price of a small, and they'll just fill up your Stanley.
Okay, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, the club soda matters a lot.
Yeah.
We need spritzy club soda. So the best I have found is the Trader Joe's. Their bottled actually has good spritz. There's another one at Harris Teeter, and I can't remember. It comes in a blue glass bottle, and it's really, really good.
Yes.
But
it's not the Saratoga one, is it?
It is. That's it.
Okay.
I
Sparkling?
love that one.
Okay.
It's got a good spritz.
Yes.
The spritz level really matters. Can you tell how much I love this?
Yeah,
I do
you're
really
really
love
into this.
Actually. Yeah, I know.
Okay. I'll have to come over.
You don't want like a,
Our next podcast we record will be on your porch, and we'll be sipping those.
That's good.
Melissa, thanks for coming on the show. This has been so fun.
So fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode, friends. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the love with your friends and family. Remember, life is all about the stories we create and share, so let's keep spreading inspiration and positivity. See you next week.